Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This is the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again with your host Nick Scopes and the Gregolicious. You know how we do, cause you know we keeping it gangster and silly. Unplugged like a full swung titty. Bout get jitty, cause you know we down to the nitty and the gritty. And we make shit sound so damn pretty. Yeah, cause this unhinged comedy. And right now you're in the mix, so get ready, cause we bout to get it poppin'. And we ain't stopping.
Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again. Yeah, we at it again. Uneducated, unfiltered, unhinged. This the Mangina Dialogues. We at it again. Yeah, we at it again.
Hello and welcome to the Mangina Dialogues. I am your host, Nick Scopes.
And I'm the Gregolicious.
And today, our guest, famed photographer, Troy Conrad. What's up, my man?
Hey, what's up, guys?
How are you doing out there?
I'm good. I'm bunkered up at a Hollywood apartment, and so far so good. I don't hear anybody coughing in my complex.
Good. Kick them out if they do. Get them out of there.
Yeah. No, everything's good here. I'm glad you guys sound well and safe.
So far, we'll see how the next 30 minutes goes.
I'm running low on toilet paper, but other than that, we're doing okay.
How is it?
That's the big thing. You know what? They're back. It's all back in stock. It was only out because people were insane. Hoarding toilet paper. I don't know if there was a reason, but they did. And now it's like people are like, "Hey, can I take this back? I was a little hasty." And stores are like, "No, don't fuck yourself."
Toilet paper.
That's how to stop it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Toilet paper is the one thing you can't return.
No returns on toilet paper, morons. And then that won't happen for the next pandemic.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Next thing you know, people are going to want to return their condoms.
That's right. Yeah, that'll probably happen. That people will do it. I'm thinking ahead to the next pandemic.
What do you think's next? What do you think's going to come next?
How are you preparing exactly?
Yeah.
Maybe we could use a tip.
Well, for me, it's easy. I'm already like a semi-prepper, right? Like, you ever watch that like Doomsday Prepper show?
Oh, yep.
I watch that and I go, need it, got it. But I live in LA. Where you can't. It's not like you can just walk around, or you can have like an AR-15 or so I don't have like the weaponry, but I've always had like N95 masks and isopropyl and a lot of first aid and gloves and all that stuff. So I didn't have to go out and buy that stuff. So I'm kind of like a defenseless prepper,
I'll tell you a funny story about one of my very close friends who lives in Studio City. So she just bought this house a couple years ago, and then first thing she did before finishing the inside was built herself a doomsday shed, right?
Ooh.
So built this shed in the back of her house, looks like any old shed that you'd have anywhere, and then stocked it with like 2 years worth of food. And I bust her chops all the time. She's got soup and everything you just mentioned and all kinds of shit, right? So What do you think happens when this all goes down 2 weeks ago? You would think that the person says, I'm in good shape. I don't have to leave my house. I have 2 years worth of food. I'm set. Nope.
No.
She gets in her car and drives to Las Vegas.
Oh, wait, what? And okay, and is that because of the climate?
No, she has a second home in Las Vegas, and she's listening to this, and she's like, "Fuck you, asshole." But I bust her chops because she's got this doomsday shed. We were talking about it a month ago when I was in LA, and I'm like, "What are you going to do with this shed? Why do you have all this shit?" And she gives me all the reasons she has it. Then she needs it, and she runs to Las Vegas.
Right. Well, look, I'm almost going to side with her because when you say a doomsday shed, that's an oxymoron. Like that's the worst place to be. It's a shed. You got to have a bunker if you're going to have a doomsday area.
Yeah, right.
Like you got to have you got to have couches and a game center. A shed just to me sounds like a person like standing in between walls of food.
Yeah, well, it's like a combination like that. It's a combination. Doomsday Preppers meets that coupon show where they like extreme couponing.
Oh my god!
Right.
Anyway,
that's crazy. But yeah, I mean, they're saying that the dry climates are a good place to be. I'm from Phoenix, so that's right now they're saying Phoenix is like this they're watching it as an experiment to see what happens in that hot weather. So we'll see.
Kind of like the spring breakers in Florida. Let's see what happens to them.
Wow, you got the humidity there. So, and we all know what's going to happen to those spring breakers in Florida, or at least what everyone wants to happen to them.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of STDs. Forget about coronavirus. They're going to get some other shit for sure.
Oh, no, it's going to be a blend. It's going to be an Corona STD.
Well, there you go. That's your next pandemic. It's the super virus.
Yeah. And I'm going to predict right now that's going to start in Miami.
Oh, yeah. I think it already started a few years back. I think it's on its way.
Yeah, you actually might be right.
That city's wild. So, Troy, we know you know, everyone knows you now as, like, you see these dope photos of all the top comedians now from the Comedy Store and wherever else. But, you know, you said you started as a stand-up 25 years ago. So take us into that and how you got into this world.
Well, I started out in Phoenix, and then a little bit in San Diego. And yeah, you know what? I always loved the comedy world. That's what I wanted to be since I was a little kid. And then I did that for a lot of years and, you know, toured all over. George Lopez brought me on the road with him to open and I had some really great experiences, but then I started creating my own shows, like hour-long shows instead that were, you know, stand up, but also characters and kind of a little more theatrical stand up stuff. So, and then once I did that, I went, you know what? I really like making things. Like I love performing, but I really like creating things. And especially if it's something that is needed, something that no one else is making. So I started, you know, directing things and making shows for other people. And that led me into more photography. I've always done photography. But that just led me into it deeper, because I needed good show photos of things I was making. And then I got encouragement. I basically got encouragement from Paul Provenza, who is my partner on Set List. It's a show that I made, which is improvised stand-up. So I got early, you know, he's not just a good friend of mine, but he's also someone that I, to this day, very much look up to, because when you talk about somebody who's made amazing things, it's Paul Provenza. I mean, I think of him as like the godfather of stand-up, of producing in the comedy world, you know? And that guy gave me some really nice words early on, and I went, okay, I'll think about it. And I got deeper into photography. And so that steered me into this, and that's where I'm at. And it's my passion. I love to do it.
Did you ever take any or have any like professional photography like teaching, or did you like have any classes, or did anyone like mentor you in photography? So, or did you just all self-trained?
I had basic instruction from my dad. My dad doesn't take a lot of photos now, but he shot on really cool film cameras with good lenses and stuff. And he showed me a lot of stuff when I was younger. I studied with a guy. What I do is workshops. I didn't go to college for photography, but I took workshops with people that I admire. And so one of the main guys who I love his work, his name is Greg Gorman. And
solid name.
What's that?
It's a solid name.
I know it is a solid name, is it not? He's actually like one of the masters, especially when it comes to black and white. He's a big portrait guy, and he worked alongside with Bruce Weber. And so if you read any magazine in the 90s, late 80s and 90s, you saw Greg Gorman's work. It's iconic. If you ever opened a magazine before 2000, you've seen a lot of Greg Gorman's work. He did a lot of Calvin Klein ads, and a lot of those cologne ads and all that stuff was like really cool print stuff. So I grew up admiring that dude's work, and then I got to study with him, and it was impactful. And then, since then I've taken workshops from a million people, and that's how I keep up with YouTube and all that. I think every day I got to learn something new, even if it's something little. and that's how I kind of stay sharp and keep it new and interesting.
Right. I mean, your photography is amazing. I mean, like whenever I'm scrolling Instagram and I see a photo, it, at least to me, it's very clearly yours. You know, I mean, obviously if it's a comedian or
that's the nicest thing you could say. I mean, I just, you know, I think, thank you for saying that. It's all a love of the game thing. I think that's how you find your style, is you find out what you love and you go, fuck everybody else who's like some people would say, hey, don't do this. Why you do black and white? I mean, why not just make it in color? And it's like, well, I don't know. I can't answer that exactly, except telling you that I like it.
Right.
And it's like, if you ask a comic, well, why do you, hey, Stephen Wright, how come you talk so slow and deliberate and weird? I don't know. That's just how I am, you know? And when you can express yourself in that way, then you don't want other people to interfere with it, you know?
So when you take a lot of these like pictures, I'm sort of just scrolling it now because there's a few that totally come to mind that I recognize, and I'm like, that's so Troy's photo. Like, do you have like one particular filter or something that you use? I mean, you could say what it is. I have no idea, but I'm just kind of curious. When you look at this like Joe Diaz picture or Mark Maron or the Leah pictures that you posted, I think yesterday.
You know, I don't. Maybe I'd be better if I did have that, but I just edit very. I guess I edit like Stephen Wright, slow and deliberate.
Right.
People use that term a lot. Say, hey, what filter are you using? And it's like, I don't even know what you mean.
Right.
Because filters, I think of like, that's something you do on Instagram or whatever. I edit my photos in Lightroom, and I sometimes will start out with, you know, something like a basic preset, but then I individually edit everything. You know, so I wish it were so easy that I could just apply something and go, cool, I just did all these. But I change settings a lot when I'm shooting, so I have to, and I shoot raw photos, which lets me edit them. It gives me a better control over like the shadows in the photo and the highlights in the photo. So a filter wouldn't work if I just went. I've tried that before, where it's like, cool, I found out a way I can just paste this to everything. Even if I do that, I still have to go through and individually adjust each one, because depending on the light and the position where I am, the exposure is going to change a little bit. So, you know, so I have to do things individually, and that has made me slow, but has kept me kind of in touch with the photo, if that makes sense.
No, totally. It's just, you know, I'm just scrolling and it's insane because so many of these photos are, I mean, every one of them is amazing. But like, are they all, I mean, obviously a lot of them are candid because they're stage shots or, you know, in the hallway at the Comedy Store, but like how much of this are setups? Or is it mostly just pure, you know, live shooting?
And you're talking about, I'm guessing you're looking at like my Instagram stuff, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
So just for the listeners who you know, people don't know who I am, Troy Conrad's with an S. My name's Troy Conrad, but it's got an S at the end on Instagram. So how much of setup, you mean in terms of like those backstage things?
Well, I'm looking at one that I was trying to find it because it was one of my favorite pictures you took of Brenton on the stairs at the Comedy Store. Just in front of all those.
Oh, those are all set up where I said, here, stand right here.
Right.
That's the Hall series.
Yeah.
At the Comedy Store. And so those are all where I asked the person, hey, can you, you know, stand right there? And I did a lot of different things with light. There were times I used flashlights to light them. Sometimes I would use an off-camera flash. But I had to be very, very fast to make those happen.
Right.
So especially there's one I did with Gerard Carmichael. He was hanging out. He brought Quentin Tarantino in to the store, and I said, "Hey, Gerard." Like they're both kind of there, standing in the hall, and I go, "Hey, Gerard, I'd love to get a picture of you and Quentin in the hall if if he's down. And then he goes, oh, I don't know. He goes, Quentin, what do you think? And Quentin was like, yeah, let's do it. and I had like 3 seconds because when it's somebody like that, you don't want to be like, okay, hold on, because now they're standing there going,
yeah, you can't do that to Quentin Tarantino.
There's going to be 7 people lined up going, hey, I wrote a screenplay for you. Like, you can't leave them in harm's way.
Yeah, for real.
So, yeah. So, I have to be quick with everything for stuff like that.
Is comedy, would you say comedy and live comedy is your favorite thing to shoot, or do you have other stuff that you like?
That is my absolute favorite thing to shoot.
I had a feeling.
Because it presents, so I have a disease that is called extreme boredom, and it happens very
it's all over this country
easily.
Right now.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah. And I guess that's why I'm surviving this. I've learned to deal with that level of boredom by just making things challenging. And so if I was out there shooting, like if I was a landscape photographer, that would have lasted, I would have lasted 2 weeks because it would be absolutely no fun because there's tons of landscape photos out there. And there are people who do that so well already. And, comedy presents a few really unique challenges. So like, let's take, for instance, rock and roll photographers. That's a challenging thing because you're dealing with stage lighting. It's low light. But at least with rock and roll photography, music photography, you can catch these moments where people aren't moving a ton. There might be just a guitar riff where the guy looks down and maybe just his fingers are moving. So you can work around that and get a good, sharp photo. With comedy, it's similar, but there's even more movement, especially weird facial movements. I would say that's the number one challenge in comedy. And anyone who's ever tried to take pictures of someone talking on stage knows this, that you have to take a hell of a lot of photos to get one that the person doesn't look like they have a deformed mouth.
Right.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, no, totally. Especially, obviously with comedy, most people have a mic in front, dead center of their face for their entire set. So it's like really finding those moments and taking a shit ton of photos, I'm sure, to find that one or two great ones.
Yeah, like the best, I had this conversation, I got to shoot Eddie Izzard at the Dynasty Typewriter Theater, which is a great iconic theater in LA. And he just wanted to do setups. Like he wanted to do a shoot in between shows. And I said, okay, that's cool. Why do you not want anyone ever to shoot your live shows? And he goes, because people end up using, and somehow it'll get out there, of someone of me with a crooked face where I just look like an idiot. He goes, I see that all the time with performers getting photographed while they're performing. So I would rather have it where it's like a good version of a non-twisted mouth. And I go, I totally get that. Let's do that. And at the end, and he has a very strict rule of no photographer ever can photograph him during his shows. It was like his last night of a 2-week run. I go, I'm going to leave now, but because you got your next show. I go, but if you want me to stay, I'll shoot the show. You won't hear anything. There won't be any distraction. And I won't put anything out there unless it's something you like. And he goes, okay. And I was like, I did not expect that, because he's strict about it. But I learned a lot from talking with him. He's talking about how much he does love the old rock and roll photos because, you're not going to get someone with a weird crooked mouth while they're singing generally. Those are pretty good. You can get like 6 out of 10 right.
Right.
And he was just talking about how he loved the look and feel of like old rock and roll photography. And I was like, hell yeah, man. I was like, that's my jam. So, I try to, through conversations, through shooting, every shoot I do, I try to learn something. I love the challenges. And, you know, when you're having to shoot, like run and gun, be really quick, it's really important to know your stuff.
Yeah.
To know your settings.
What's the craziest shoot that you've or experienced shooting that you've been, you know, put into?
Oh, I think I have a lot of those. Let me think about that. The craziest shoot. I mean, I feel like some of my craziest shoots are with this really great comic named Annie Lederman, Leder Lederman.
Yeah, she's great.
Just letting you know, she called me a cunt at the outside at the bar at the Comedy Store a few months ago. Yeah. And okay, I complimented her. I figured it was a compliment, and you know, it was a good Annie moment to get called a cunt. I mean, if you don't have one of those, what do you have?
That's right. I mean, that's very Annie. She is a very free spirit, and I think the hardest I've ever laughed on shoots have been shoots with her. We did one where I wanted to do like it's like a Marilyn, you know, that iconic Marilyn Monroe where the dress is blowing up. She's standing on that grate.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do that, but with her in a trash bag dress.
Perfect.
Yeah.
On a dumpster.
That's perfect.
Yes.
On a dumpster in an alley. And we had like a blower, a leaf blower for the wind. And we did it. And I just remember that being one of the craziest shoots ever because she was so funny. And she just kept saying hilarious, dirty things the whole time. And we couldn't stop laughing. It was an amazing time. So I don't know, but I mean, I've definitely had crazy shoots. I love getting kicked out of places. That's something I like because, again, it's a way of getting through boredom. And boredom is, you have to sometimes bend the rules a bit. So I like going to places where you definitely are not allowed to shoot and then shooting in there.
Like where?
What are some of those places?
So high security hotels where everyone has earpieces on are some of the best places because they will sniff you out. So I like to go in and put my camera. I walk in with like a CVS bag with the camera in it, maybe a Hawaiian shirt, and
cute.
And then I tell my subject like, hey, we're going to talk about how we need new towels, more towels in the room, and whatever we want to talk about hotel things that's like boring shit. So we do that when we're walking by secure, so it doesn't raise any suspicions. And then when we get to that area, it's like that's one of the ways I learned to be good is, doing a good shoot. You have to take a little time and prepare and get your settings. When you know the light in a room and you can manually adjust those settings to exactly what you want and get the shot, that made me better because every mistake I learned from. Because they suck. It sucks to make mistakes, but that's the only way that I've gotten good. I'm really awesome at making lots of mistakes and fucking things up. So
that's a perfect quote for this podcast. That's perfect.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. And I have things in my life where I'm afraid to make mistakes. I do. I have things where I don't take action on that thing because I'm afraid deep down of fucking it up. But I overcame that with photography and let go of that. And I've definitely had disappointments and I've disappointed other people, but I'll tell you what, that's what made me good because disappointment is a very good teacher.
Sure.
For real. It's funny you said that. I find that with stand-up, like I've started stand-up like about 2 years ago, and it's just, you learn quick. Like you just, dealing with disappointment or like it's making you, because I was almost like, I don't want to say forced into it, but my buddy signed me up and I was like, oh boy, here we go. Like, I don't know if I could do this. And then you start doing it and then you like start to realize like, why not? Like just fucking get up there and go for it. Like it's going to be tough at first, but just keep going for it.
I can vouch for Nick. Yep. He's had an awful lot of disappointment.
Yeah. Well, once you learn from that, it gets you better. You also have to, at the same time, by the way, of that disappointment, like you have to ask yourself, am I listening too much to what other people say, or do I have to trudge through this? You know, like I had someone tell me, you know, we were just talking about, and I know this is weird on an audio thing to talk about photos, but we were talking about the Hall series, which I shoot with this 8mm fisheye lens. So it's a aperture f2.8 manual lens, and it's 8mm on a crop sensor camera. Sorry to get technical, but that's what it is. And someone said to me early on, goes, yeah, those are cool, but you know, fisheye photos, I mean, it is kind of hacky. I remember somebody saying that to me, somebody I knew well, and they weren't being a jerk at all. They were looking out for me. They were like, look, it's just a little hacky. And so I had to decide. I had to make a decision. Like, do I listen to other people? Do I just say this was all a big mistake, or do I listen to myself and my intuition? My intuition said, I don't know, maybe it's hacky, but I like it, and I don't think it's hacky. So I'm going to keep doing it. And I think that with stand-up, it's the same thing. Like, you have to, certainly you have to take notes. I've had other people give me notes that were really helpful. Right. I had a friend who said, my friend Charlie Sotelo, he's a brilliant photographer and a big South by Southwest guy for comedy. And he goes, your pictures are turning out really grainy. What lens you using? And he basically, this is early on, and he goes, you're not using a lens that goes wide enough to get shots in this particular room. And I was like, shit, you're 100% right, dude. And so after that, I changed lenses. I got better lenses, and then I learned how to use those because they're way trickier. The nicer lenses you get, the trickier they are to use in low light, at least if you're shooting more than one person. So, there's always things. You have to know what to take and what not to take. That's the wisdom of any art form, right?
Yeah, I would agree 100%. It's now with your stand-up, because everyone sees the photos and things. You said you got to go on the road with George Lopez.
Yeah, I got to go. I even got to open on New Year's Eve 2000.
That's cool.
New Year's Eve 2000.
That's pretty awesome.
And you lived to tell
it
about
was, it. It was at the Celebrity Theater in Phoenix. I had already worked with George, and it was like, he called. He's like, hey, I want you to open New Year's Eve. And so it was me. I went on first, and then brought on Carlos Mencia, and then George Lopez. And it was definitely one of my best stand-up experiences.
I've never heard of any of those guys. Who are they?
Yeah, I know. Back then, that was peak times for both those guys. And
sure.
George Lopez is still killing it out there. And I did a show called the Comedy Jesus Show as well. Yeah. And that was after I moved to LA, which was shortly after that. Like that, those shows, like I think I moved in 2003 or something. I did a show called the Comedy Jesus Show, and I took that around the world. And that was basically, I just did a few different characters. Again, it came from boredom. I couldn't just do stand up anymore. And that's why I stopped, at least for now, because I felt like I did everything I could do. And that was just where I was at. And it's, I just had to listen to myself into what direction I wanted to go. But I did this show called the Comedy Jesus Show, and I had a blast doing it. Did a bunch of festivals, and then I ended up getting distribution from this company. Saw the DVD that I made, and they go, hey, we want to distribute this, and it went into like all the Walmarts, and it went all over the place. And the funny thing was, it was a very anti-Walmart. Like the ending of it had a big calling on Walmart employees to unionize, but they don't watch. They don't watch it. They just go by feedback and whatever.
That's hilarious.
So they were selling this thing that was telling their employees to unionize. I thought that was really fun.
That's incredible.
Well, imagine what's going to come out
really
of this virus experience if you develop out of boredom. Jeez. Something amazing else is going to happen in July.
Yeah, what I'm doing now is I'm trying to put together book, and I say trying because I've not figured out which layout and formula and direction. So I don't want to say I'm putting together a book, because that wouldn't be fair to myself to say that. I've not made that key decision yet. And that's probably just out of that, me not making a decision of the direction is just me stalling and like being a little afraid of like, what if I pick the wrong angle? Because I can't do like the same kind of thing that has been done over and over again. So it's going to be something different.
Right.
You know? So,
Just
so we'll see.
it.
But what's that?
I say you just got to do it, man. Just go for it.
I feel there's a
It's
book in your
always-
future.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I definitely, yeah, I've taken, you know, I have so many photos from all over festivals in different countries and clubs in other states and all this stuff. And I just, you know, I can't wait to put it together. So
Besides Annie, do you have
And-
like anyone else that you're like, you love shooting just because they're great subjects for you?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, I totally do. So I just shot Netflix specials for both Tom Segura and Chris D'Elia. Tom's is called Ball Hog, and it just came out. And
Watched
Chris's
it.
comes out in 2.
Yep.
Okay, great, and it's
Great.
fantastic.
Yep.
And Chris's comes out in 2 weeks, and it's called No Pain. And but you know what? We talk about guys that are like great to hang and shoot with and are so much fun. Definitely those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't say enough nice things about. As far as other people I like to shoot, oh man,
You should try to find something not nice to say about D'Elia, because that would be fun.
say something not nice about Chris D'Elia. Let me tell you, man.
It would be fun.
Not only, wait, I know, right? Well, not only is he like a super nice guy, but like the people that I work with, I don't make them into something. And here's what I mean by that. We all do this as human beings, whether it's, if you work in an insurance office and you have the corporate CEO comes to visit, you make that corporate CEO into a non-human, something larger than life or whatever. And I think that a lot of times that can do a disservice to the person.
Yep.
So I don't do that with the people that I work with either. Like when I shoot Joe Rogan, I don't ever think of Joe Rogan as a celebrity. I get reminded of that when like when we're walking by and someone goes, "Oh my God, I love your podcast." I get reminded of that, but I don't think that way because I think that's a disservice. So I had to learn to I don't give a shit anymore. So with Chris D'Elia, when we shot his special in Minneapolis, it was the end of the night. We're all walking out. He's, going back to the hotel. And it's like an hour, maybe an hour and a half after wrap because, we had an after party in the building. There was still a couple waiting outside. And it was a guy and a girl. And this girl, they were both like 25. And the guy goes, "Can my girlfriend just have a picture with you?" And he was like, "All right," really fast. Because it's like, now it's getting crazy. Like you waited an hour and a half. But he's like, "Okay, you wait an hour and a half." Okay. I had to walk home just, 10 feet behind this couple. And this girl bunny hopped all the way, just out of excitement. She wasn't even aware she was doing it. She's like, "I just got a picture with Chris D'Elia." And she was bunny hopping. And I went, "That's so crazy. I don't think of Chris that way." Like, of course he's a huge celebrity. I totally get it. I know that. But I wouldn't be able to do my job if I thought like that,
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
You can't do that. You can't be intimidated and starstruck because what you're doing is you're making a person, a human, into a them instead of a you. I think it hurts. And that's with anything. That's with any artist. If comics, they have to perform with famous people in the audience sometimes.
Yep.
I remember that used to throw me off like a lot. Or even like I used to get nervous when it was like big groups of military because it was scary to me to perform for military for some reason. I wouldn't be intimidated by it now, but I definitely was back then.
What were you scared of? Like, what celebrities have seen you do stand up to where you're like, oh my god, so and so's in the audience?
No, just the people I worked with. Like,
Just okay.
you know, like back in the day, like the number one that made me most nervous was Mark Maron. Because
I could
he's
see
so
that.
judgmental.
he has like this like a college professor like look and like thing to him. You're like like you don't want to fuck up in his class. You know what I mean? It's the way he looks.
He's just gonna look. He's gonna look at you and just give you that fucking like, you piece of shit.
Right. You worry about that, but that's all mental shit. And you know, because in reality, he's not that way. His bark's worse than his bite. He's not like that. And sometimes he has a terrible bite, but he's not. He's not. He's open to a discussion. You know.
Tell me why you don't suck.
Yeah, he's very confrontational, and it just throws people off because most people are not used to that. But it's like I was saying earlier, like he's just being himself. Like he's just listening to his intuition. You know, Bill Burr's the same way. Bill Burr is very confrontational. Like I remember I was talking about some story I read about in the early days of news radio. I read something about Joe Rogan that his agent was like saying he already had these deals and that helped him get on the show. And the news story was probably bullshit. But I remember saying that, and Bill Burr was in the room too, and he's like, "So I've never heard that story. You're full of shit, man." Like he just like went off of me, and I was like, "No, I'm just saying I remembered it was in print. I'm just saying the story, whether it's true or not." And he's like, "Dude, I've known him. I've never heard that. You're full of shit." You know, and you have to have a thick skin to work with people who are like always going to call you out on shit. And I like, by the way, I'd rather work with people like that than people who don't say anything. I think one of the best quotes about friendship I've ever heard, I think it was Whitney Cummings. And she was talking about a friend. She was like bringing up a friend on stage at a benefit. She goes, "I love her because she talks shit to my face and talks good about me behind my back." And I went, "That's the best definition of a good person I've ever heard."
Her friend must not be a comedian.
No, you know what? I don't know. I think it was an actor. But still, same genre.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but no, I would. That's a good quote. I like that. I would agree with that. I'm looking at Greg because I know Greg talks shit to my face all the time.
All the time. And to
That's
other people.
shit, man.
Right? You want people to be real with you, especially like, I don't mean to get whatever, but like the older you get, you're like, enough with the bullshit. Can we not, like, no games, just fucking tell me what it is. I don't care. You know what I mean? Tell me what it is. Drives me nuts.
I'd rather have 30 seconds of hurt feelings than years of a fake friendship.
Yeah, fuck that. Who's got time for that shit? Drives me nuts. So Troy, what's next for you, man? I know you mentioned a TV show, right? Or a show you're putting together?
Well, yeah. So I just directed. I'm starting to produce and direct comedy specials for like on a low budget scale for comics, because there are some people who are really fantastic, and I think that they should have a voice through a special. So I just finished. It just came out like a month ago. Fielding, her name's Fielding Edlow, and it got bought up like right off the bat. And so it's out now on Amazon, and it turned out fantastic. So now, and I'm also, I made a new show for Quibi, and it's called Q Talks, and it's performers doing talks from a teleprompter that keeps breaking. So they have to improvise through it. It's like they're given a kind of like a TED Talk, and it's a really fun show. So that comes out at the end of June, and it's got Lisa Kudrow and Niecy Nash, Jimmy O Yang from Crazy Rich Asians, Regina Hall from Girls Trip, and Kristen Shaw. So it's a really great show. They're like 5 or 6 minute episodes, but That's what I want to. That's what I want to plug. If you're going for, I definitely want to tell people to watch that because it's a good, it's a very good project.
It sounds awesome. Sounds hysterical.
Super funny. Turned out super funny.
That's awesome.
So, how often are you at the Comedy Store shooting? Is that like, are you there every night? Obviously not now.
Everything in California is now closed.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm there. I was before this year, I was doing like 2 nights a week, and then I think maybe 2 weeks before this pandemic closed everything, I was doing 5 or 6 nights a week because they brought me on as because they've never had a house photographer, so they brought me on as the official house photographer.
Right.
So, and I brought in another really great photographer named Matt Masisko, and he's a good fellow too. He shoots a show called The Goddamn Comedy Jam and a bunch of other stuff. He's got a good relationship with comics, and I have people all the time that DM me about, hey, I'd love to come shoot at the store and all that stuff. It's like they never have allowed photography at the store, but I started there shooting Roast Battle, and I just kind of did it, and I think that I put good stuff out there, and I always want to be of service, so I'm sending these things to the Comedy Store, and that's helping them. And I wasn't being like watermarking my shit and all that stuff. People were like, hey, please watermark it. That way, no. I was like, no, I'm just gonna not watermark it. Yep. And if you have your own style, you don't need to watermark stuff.
Right. Yeah. So, no, for sure.
Yeah. So so it's really hard because people write to me all the time about that, and I had to say, hey, I can't help you. People don't want to. I don't know. It's a tricky thing. You really got to you have to develop your own stuff, and I truly believe creativity solves every problem. If you sit down, if you got a problem, like whatever that is, like, hey, I want to be a better comic and play at bigger venues or whatever it is. Sit down and write a fucking top 10 list right now of 10 ways you could do that. And you'll scare the shit out of yourself because you'll have some really viable answers right there in front of you on paper from your heart. Yeah. And you're going to be scared of them. You're going to go, shit, I don't know, that one sounds scary or whatever. But if you write those things out and you don't censor yourself, you just write them out, no matter how dumb they sound or how big they sound, then you'll have those answers. It's just a matter of, are you going to take action and actually do that thing?
Yeah, 100%.
I think that was a great way. We're coming towards the end here, a great way to end it. But besides the new shows and anything, do you want to plug anything else before we hang up here?
Yeah, just watch the great Netflix specials from Chris D'Elia, Tom Segura. Watch Field and Edlow's special. Here, I'll just plug random shit. Follow everything Eddie Pepitone does because Eddie Pepitone is pure hilarious joy. And he is a total, cynical, the most cynical curmudgeon person ever. But I mean, I call my dad all the time and I read him Eddie's tweets because it's the hardest my dad's ever laughed ever. And my dad has actually almost had heart attacks from laughing at Eddie's tweets. So I highly recommend that. In this time of crisis, if you're a person that has money to support artists and comics, find the ones you love and do it.
Yeah, amen.
Yeah, I've been trying to hit up Greg for money, so we'll see how this goes.
Well, hey, I'm sure you guys always got the address of that Doomsday Shack.
I do, but I'm 3,000 miles away right now. I know. Good news is I have rights.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see, man. Troy, thank you so much for coming on today, man. We really appreciate your time
Troy,
and these stories and everything. This was great.
Thanks for reaching out to have me on. And I would be very happy to come back because I enjoyed the discussion. So let me know, even if it's last minute. Happy to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Next time I'm in LA, which who the hell knows when that's going to be. I'll definitely hit you up because I'm at the store usually a couple nights a week when I'm out there.
Oh, right on.
Yeah. So anyway, man, really appreciate the time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll definitely talk to you again soon.
Thanks so
All right,
much,
man.
you guys.
Thanks
All right,
a lot, brother.
stay safe.
Take care.
Bye.